Hi there, Zamin for NerdTube. These are my thoughts and spoilers of Ted Lasso Season 3, Episode 6, Sunflowers. So this episode was set in Amsterdam and our boys lose 5-0 in a friendly match to Ajax. And they decide, instead of like going back home straight away, they're going to spend a day in Amsterdam, and Ted Lasso lets them do whatever they want, let their hair down. And overall, what we get is, in my opinion, the most heartwarming episode of Ted Lasso ever. Such beautiful moments with some of our characters here, and some of the majority of the football players stick together and they have an issue of what they're supposed to do, and that kind of becomes the subplot for those guys because they can't decide what to do, and they have opportunities to do certain things, but because not everyone's in agreement, they end up just staying in the hotel having pillow fights and doing fuck all. And that was supposed to be about them guys. But some of the other players do end up doing other things. For instance, Roy Kent and Jamie Tart, they still keep training because Roy Kent's not going to give up on Jamie Tart. And so they have a nice sort of almost brotherly, friendly bond. They're similar but different, these guys. And watching them train together, and Roy Kent just being like an older guy now who's finding it hard to keep up with Jamie Tart and having to listen to Jamie Tart waffle about the history of Amsterdam kind of grates Roy a little bit. But what's the most nicest moment is Roy having to admit that he can't ride a bicycle after Jamie gets a thief to steal some bicycles for him. And this is a really funny moment because this is the most vulnerable we've seen Roy, and Jamie has to teach Roy how to ride a bike, and then eventually they do ride bikes and they see some windmills. It's just a nice, bonding moments. It was really good. We have Higgins and Will the Kitman having a nice moment together, almost fatherly son like. It looks like Higgins is kind of playing away from home, so we assume, because he's talking about how he wants to go to the red light district, but it's not to do with sex. It's to do with jazz and music, because he's a musician. If you remember, we see him playing the bass in earlier episodes, and he ends up going to a jazz cafe and takes Will with him, and he ends up playing bass for this band at this jazz cafe. It's really cool, and it was just a nice little moment, and it was actually very heartwarming to know that Higgins wasn't going to play away from home. Um, Rebecca, one of the most beautiful scenes in this episode. She falls into a lake after this one guy who just sees this, Rebecca, who's a very beautiful woman, walking along, and he catches her attention, but by doing so, she falls into the lake, into the river, sorry, and he rescues her, and then they just have moments together on his boat. He's a rugged guy, but he's a handsome guy, and he's a bit of a charmer as well, and just their interactions, and just it's a bit like the film Lost in Translation with Bill Murray and Scarlett Johansson. It's a bit like that, so to speak. Just a couple of people who are just knowing each other, but they don't have much time with each other because they both have to go back to doing what they're supposed to do. He lives in Amsterdam, she lives in England, she has to go back to England, and so it's a bit bittersweet that when they do end up having to leave, they probably won't see each other again. But the time they did have with each other was lovely. It was really good stuff. Ted Lasso himself, he's not necessarily down with experiencing what Amsterdam has to offer. He's a beer drinker, not a weed smoker. And so him and Coach Beard, when they try to initially are going to drink some weed tea, Ted Lasso backs out. Coach Beard drinks it, thinks he's getting high, but it's all actually a placebo. But that's not really the point here. The point is that Coach Beard wants to get fucked and enjoy himself in Amsterdam. Ted Lasso doesn't. So Coach Beard, with Ted Lasso allowing him to, says, goes off and does his own thing, and then Ted Lasso does his own thing, and what Ted Lasso really wants is maybe a little taste of home, and he finds this American restaurant, which is really a parody of what American restaurants are. Like, the staff there are Australian, putting on American accents, but Ted Lasso doesn't realize this. So when he's talking about back home, the staff haven't got a clue what he's talking about, and then he realizes they're not American in the first place; they're just putting on an accent. And the food itself, it's like onion rings stacked as a pyramid, and freedom fries and stuff. Like I said, proper parody food and a parody themed American restaurant. But whilst he's sitting there eating his freedom fries and his onion rings, he's also watching a classic NBA game, which he actually watched live when he was a kid, and he's kind of like thinking of basketball sort of tactics, and he's mixing that up, and he looks at his onion rings and they're stacked in a triangle, and he's thinking about triangles and stuff like that. And then we get a brief sort of bizarre moment about the history of triangles. It's crazy, it's all in his head. But the point is that Ted Lasso then starts writing down all these tactics using triangles, and then he wants to implement that into football. And he speaks to Coach Beard at the end of the episode, who's whacked out of his face, looking like Ziggy Stardust with a pig's nose on his face, a plastic pig nose that is, and stuff like that. And he tells him about this, and Coach Beard says that this has already been done before. It's called total football. It's invented in Holland, the city, in the country we're currently in. And Ted Lasso goes, great, we'll try this when we get back to England. But of all the stories in this episode, it was the one with Colin and Trent, which I liked the most. Colin is obviously a gay footballer, and he doesn't want to do any of the stuff with all the other footballers because he's not into what they want to do. And and Trent obviously knows that Colin is gay, and Trent follows Colin as Colin leaves the team and does his own thing. And Colin goes into a gay bar. Trent catches him there. Colin shits himself because he pretends that he's in the wrong place and all of that. But then Trent reassures him, listen, mate, I've known for a while that you're, I saw you kissing your boyfriend on the streets outside outside the Ola restaurant, which was owned by Sam. So, it was an interesting moment for Colin, knowing that somebody else knows, and this person happens to be a reporter. But Trent reassures him, listen, I'm gay as well, mate. It's all good. I know what it's like, to not come out or to try to come out, because Trent has a daughter and he had to come out to his daughter, when he didn't want to, or was worried at how his daughter would react. It's a nice little story. Trent and Colin having beers, talking, about what it's like to be gay and stuff like that. It was great. And then they end up going to some bars and just partying as a couple of friends and just having a good time. And it was just nice. It was just nice because there was no, just because they're two gay dudes, it doesn't mean they're gonna get it on. They're just being friends. They just know what it's like to be gay and be in a situation where it's very difficult to be who you are, especially for someone like Colin, who plays in a sport where there's so much homophobia, tons of it. And the footballers who do tend to come out after they retire. But whilst they're playing, apart from one who plays in the Australian A-League, footballers don't come out. And it was just nice seeing all of that played out as well. Regarding Colin. And I think what made this such a great episode as well is that the feel good factor was in full effect. And once everyone gets back on the coach and ready to go home, everyone just seems to be so happy, and I'm really hoping that this will in a way make next week's episode interesting regarding the football, because hopefully Richmond FC will start winning again, and that's what we want to see. And I'm hoping with Ted's tactics and everyone just in a good place, we'll see that from next week. We can only keep our fingers crossed. Come on, Richmond. Come on, Richmond. Anyways, great episode. Absolutely love it. I'm giving it a straight 10. It's such a beautiful episode. And Ted Lasso is no longer, as I said before, about this fish who's out of water. There's so many different storylines now to talk about. So many different characters to talk about. The joke about an American coach managing a Premier League team. That joke is done and dusted now, and this shows more than just that. Anyway, let me know what you think of Ted Lasso, Season 3, Episode 6, Sunflowers. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe to NerdTube. We're also on YouTube, as well as TikTok, the greatest YouTube channel you never heard of. Take care. Bye-bye.